I'm often asked to do lore breakdowns of Fanon ships, everything from vessels appearing in the most popular of Star Wars mods to pictures on construction paper that people email me, and I appreciate getting both. That's why today we'll be looking at and breaking down 5 of the most well-known Fanon Star Destroyers of all time. And for those curious, Fanon means that something is neither canon or legends, but is created by a fan. I place no preference on the source, whether it's something that appeared in a fan-made video game or mod, just a drawing that someone posted on the internet, or a combination of those things. Star Wars has a lot of passionate fan artists, by the way, guys, so if you see something that you like in today's video, check the description. I've linked everything thoroughly. Make sure to go support your content creators. But let's get started with the Imperium Ultra Star Destroyer, one of the most famous Fanon Star Destroyers, and certainly the one I'm most frequently asked to cover. I think a lot of people think that this actually existed in Legends. I find that sort of funny, both because this ship is humongous and way past the scale of anything that happened in the old expanded universe, but also because it reflects on the fact that most people saw Legends as always one-upping itself. The Ultra was a 260-kilometer long behemoth, designed by artist Wolf Shipyards, and this is how they describe it. The embodiment of Palpatine's plan for extragalactic conquest, the Imperium would have been as powerful as a Death Star, but much more mobile. It was equipped with a fleet of capital ships and would have virtually unlimited range, since it would have also carried world devastators to produce its needed supplies. The immortal Palpatine would have spread the Empire across the universe, and the crew would have been immortal as well, thanks to cloning equipment that would have been on board. Thankfully, Palpatine was not as immortal as he had hoped, and the ship never progressed beyond initial planning stages. So, the artist intends the Imperium Ultra Star Destroyer basically to be the Dark Empire in a nutshell. It would travel throughout the universe, serving as a mobile base for the Empire and using world devastators to constantly refill its supplies. In that sense, the sheer size of the vessel can be explained, but to me, it does seem a bit too out of line with the rest of the universe. That being said, I'm not going to go out of my way to criticize any of the designs in today's video. That being said, my favorite thing about the Ultra class is a parody comment left about the ship in a 2002 Space Battles forum post by user E1701, which talks about the quote-unquote minor issues the ship was experiencing after its in-system shakedown cruise, including the fact that traveling the vessel takes 6 days, and thus tent cities had sprung up between the bridge and crew quarters. There's also the following bit, which I just find hilarious and want to excerpt totally. Our chief engineer has begun the habit of signing his records Chief Marshal, Sovereign Nation of Rhea-Kator. He has since sealed off those decks and started a war. The war in question is against his apparent rival, the commander of our ground forces near the main flight deck, who is taken to calling himself the Bringer of the Apocalypse. Surveillance records indicate that they have since stopped wearing their armor and have begun smearing their bodies with industrial cleaning fluid and lubricants before launching raids upon the engineering department. The commenter further teases the design by calling it the Super Duper Star Destroyer line and the ship itself the Freudian Nightmare. I want to make clear though, although I'm glad the ship is not canon, I think the ridiculousness is fun in its own right. And though ridiculously large, there are other things in the universe that near its size, and some, like Centerpoint Station, are actually larger. Funny enough, when the design for the Mega Star Destroyer was first released, and it was said to have a length of 60 kilometers, some assumed that that referred to the end of the wingtip to the front, and there were calculations going around saying that the actual wingspan of the Mega Star Destroyer would be hundreds of kilometers. Thankfully, that ended up just being some unclear language. Let's move on though, and next is the Pride of the Core, a Mandator II dreadnought, which I believe first appeared in the Republic at War mod for Empire at War. So, the Mandator II is actually an official ship type within Star Wars Legends. However, the specific ship and the actual design used is not. I think the ship model is interesting, but it's not what I'd expect. The Essential Guide to Warfare and its endnotes specifically make it clear that A, the Bellator is an offshoot of the Mandator line, and B, the Mandator has a similar ridge design, all of course based off of a background ship in Dark Empire. In my mind, the Mandator 2 should be a wide 8-kilometer long Bellator, less slim and sleek, but a pretty similar design. I'm going to do my own version of the Mandator 2 in an upcoming size comparison video. Next up, I want to talk about the works of Ansel Howe, otherwise known as Fractal Sponge. Probably the most prolific Star Wars ship designer, and some of his designs, including the Allegiance, Bellator, and Deserter, have even been canonized in the Essential Guide to Warfare. Recently, Fractal Sponge has been working on an Imperial missile cruiser, which I love. It's awesome, unique, and somehow maintains an Imperial aesthetic. Fractal Sponge himself has really created the aesthetic for large, non-standard Imperial capital ships, so thus a lot of what he creates looks like it could be slotted straight into the Imperial military. The one that I'd like to focus on briefly is the Impeller fleet carrier, which to me almost looks like an upsized Gladiator. I really like the fact that almost all of the open areas of the ships are covered with hangars. Sometimes we see supposed carriers in Star Wars with 1 or 2 spots for fighters to exit. That doesn't make any sense. Aesthetically, it also looks like the ship was built on the basis of the Asserter, just with more of a focus on carrying, which I also think is super cool. Obviously, a ship of this size could hold its own against most enemies one-on-one, especially during the Galactic Civil War era, and it maintains the standard Fractal Sponge central ridge, armed with flexible large weapons, as well as the normal Star Destroyer flank batteries. According to Ansel, the Star Destroyer was meant to carry nearly 2,000 fighters, easily enough to either support a large fleet, occupy worlds independently, or do a variety of other things. Next up is the Pelta Star Destroyer, a ship belonging to the Empire of the Hand in the Thrawn's Revenge mod for Empire at War. Empire of the Hand ships are meant to be a hybrid of Imperial and Chiss designs. That being said, I don't think we ever had a single Empire of the Hand ship visualized in the Star Wars Legends continuity. So the artists here were tasked with coming up with their own design which would believably fit within the continuity, and I think they did a great job. The artist specifically, by the way, is Encar, former Sins of the Solar Empire concept and 3D artist from the Thrawn's Revenge team. The Peltas takes the basic issues of Imperial ship design that we know and love, from the iconic bridge and flank weapons to the slate gray color and the engine placement. However, unlike most Imperial ships and Legends, the Peltas is incredibly specialized and a precise weapon rather than a blunt tool, which I see as evidence of the Chiss influence. The Chiss roots can also be seen in the Peltas main weapon, which is supposed to be a long-range Mega Mazer. A Mazer in Legends is a sort of weird laser particle hybrid, and a Mega Mazer is an upscaled version of that. And it's said to sport a long-range railgun-esque weapon. In both the game and the lore, it serves as a fairly unique cruiser type, with great power and range, but almost no durability. The official Thrawn's Revenge forums give some more detail, explaining that it was one of several fusions of the basic Star Destroyer form and the Ascendancy modifications, meant to help combat the very specific threats of the unknown regions. It was also basically a mobile, self-reliant railgun, which borrowed some elements of the Confederacy of Independent Systems subjugator line. So yeah, basically a glass cannon in almost all respects, but something that can work extraordinarily well if protected by more battle-capable ships. This realistically seems like something Thrawn would use, and an improvement on existing Imperial designs that I could see the Chiss implementing. Finally, we have the Hegemon class Star Dreadnought, created by Romain Descreen for the 2016 ILM Art Challenge. It's not only a Star Destroyer with a mini Death Star, but it's also large enough to launch Star Destroyers from its side bays. It also has what I assume are supposed to be interdictor bubbles. Nothing about this is practical or feasible, thus making it sort of hard to rate or critique, but damn, does it ever look cool. Also in a similar style, we know concept art before Episode 7 proposed the marriage of the Star Destroyer and the Death Star, and we've seen other things in ILM art submissions, as well as of course ships in Legends with super lasers generally. I really like the idea of Star Destroyers having large central bulbs like this, and it would be cool to see something like that in the future. Anyway, that's all I have to talk about Fanon Star Destroyers today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Today's question comes from Turkey Legs, a very fitting name for this time of year, who asks, what are you and EC Henry doing together? As I mentioned in that video that we're planning to do a cool project. Well, EC Henry and I are planning to do a full 3D rendered short film which would show a Viscount class Star Defender going up against an Eclipse II Super Star Destroyer. We've released some footage, I've seen more obviously than what I've put out, and I'll just say it looks absolutely incredible. I can't wait for it to be done and for you guys to see it. It will also have full sound effects and basically everything you'd expect from a short movie. The best part is, if it does well, which I hope and think it will, we've got a lot of other ideas planned and a lot more content like that planned for my channel and his in the future. Anyway, until next time guys, this has been EckhartsLadder. Leave your questions down below with the hashtag AskEck and maybe I'll answer them next time. Until then, may the Force be with you.